The first time I saw the clock, I was 6 years old. It stood in the corner of my grandfather's workshop, towering over me like a silent sentinel. Its face was ornate, covered in swirling gold patterns, and its hands moved backward. "That's not for you," grandfather said, his voice sharp. He rarely spoke of the clock, and when he did, it was with a tone that brooked no questions. But I was curious. At night, when the workshop was empty, I'd sneak in and watch the clock. Its ticking was strange, uneven, as if it were counting down to something. And sometimes, when the moonlight hit it just right, I swore I could see shadows moving inside the glass. When grandfather died, he left me the clock. I was 23 by then, living in the city and working a job I hated. The clock arrived in a crate, accompanied by a note in grandfather's shaky handwriting: "Do not wind it. Do not open it. Do not let it stop." I ignored the warning. The clock was beautiful, after all, and it deserved to be displayed. I placed it in my living room, where it became a conversation piece. Friends marveled at its craftsmanship, though they always left uneasy, as if the clock were watching them. One night, after too much wine, I decided to wind it. The key was cold in my hand, and the mechanism resisted at first, as if it didn't want to be touched. But I persisted, turning the key until I felt the gears catch. The clock shuddered. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the hands began to spin backward, faster and faster, until they were a blur. The room grew cold. I woke to the sound of knocking. It was late, past midnight, and the knocking was soft but insistent. I opened the door to find a woman standing there. She was tall, with pale skin and dark hair that fell in waves around her shoulders. Her eyes were the color of storm clouds, and she wore a dress that seemed to shift and shimmer in the dim light. "May I come in?" she asked, her voice like the chime of a distant bell. I stepped aside, though every instinct screamed at me to slam the door. She walked to the clock and placed a hand on its face. "You shouldn't have wound it," she said. "Who are you?" I asked, my voice trembling. She turned to me, her expression unreadable. "I'm the clockmaker's daughter. And you've just woken something that should have stayed asleep." Before I could respond, the clock began to chime. The woman's eyes widened. "It's too late," she whispered. The shadows in the room began to move, twisting and writhing like living things. The air grew heavy, and the walls seemed to close in. The woman grabbed my arm, her grip like ice. "Run!"